Hey, everybody. Well, we lost a great one today. Jimmy Carter, RIP to a great man and a fine president. I always liked Jimmy Carter. I had dinner with Jimmy Carter about 20 years ago in the Carter Center with two other people, and it was an honor. It was really one of the joys of my sort of career, if you will. But this is the Playboy magazine from 1976, and this is where Jimmy Carter gave an interview to Playboy magazine. So, I have kind of a little memorabilia collection, some presidential memorabilia. Some of you might have saw I bought the Donald Trump guitar. This is the Jimmy Carter Playboy interview, and I picked this up. And this is the interview where he famously admitted to Playboy that he had looked upon women with lust in his heart, and that lust was a sin that he struggled with. And going to his Christian background, lust is a sin, which I was raised with that idea also. So, but I remember that was kind of a lot of people talked about Jimmy Carter admitting that he had looked on women with lust in his heart. It occurs to me that might be a more controversial statement today than in 1976, where we have such sort of political correctness, or whatever you would like to call it, about the way we describe women. But I remember this, and unfortunately, the paper on this one is not that good. I showed you the John Lennon interview that was in Playboy magazine, and that came out right at the beginning of 1980, and the paper was noticeably better. This paper is thinner, and the photography, it's not as sharp, but it's not as kind of shiny and glossy as that 1980. But Jimmy Carter. And while we're talking about Jimmy Carter, I just wanted to show you this. This is another piece of presidential memorabilia I have, or American political memorabilia. This is actually a Lester Maddox Wake Up America alarm clock. I'm sort of ashamed to admit I even have it. I certainly don't espouse Lester Maddox. But Lester Maddox was Jimmy Carter's predecessor as the governor of Georgia, and he was avid segregationist, and a kind of a contemporary of George Wallace. And this is signed by Lester Maddox. So, and I bought this at a flea market one time, where I bought a bunch of vinyl records, and the lady there had this, and I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's a Wake Up America Lester Maddox alarm clock." And Lester Maddox used to have a restaurant, and he was famous for not allowing black people to eat in his restaurant, which of course is terrible. We don't even want to make that sound like it's funny or something. It's not, but he became kind of famous all over the country for that, and it was in the days, kind of the George Wallace days, and but he used to sell this alarm clock in his restaurant, a Wake Up America alarm clock. You can Google it. It's that was kind of his slogan, "Wake Up America," and I bought this, and the old lady I bought it from, she had a bunch of old vinyl Southern rock albums, and then I bought this for I paid $10 for it, and she told me Lester Maddox was the only politician I ever saw that left office with less money than he went into it with. She was kind of a Lester Maddox fan, I guess. But anyway, I just thought I'd point that out because he was Jimmy Carter's predecessor, and Jimmy Carter. You'll probably be hearing about that. That was part of his legacy as he came out of the old segregated South. And at the time, he was kind of, I think, conciliatory, trying to bring people together. Today, we might say he was too conciliatory with people like George Wallace and Lester Maddox, and they endorsed him. They all endorsed him, and he welcomed their endorsement. But I don't think he was ever overtly espousing their policies. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. But there's a TIAC cassette deck. But the photography's not quite as nice in this one, so I don't think we're going to go through it. That one with John Lennon in it. And by the way, every once in a while there's a little picture there we really shouldn't see, but there's the table of contents. I say, see, Mom, it's true. You really can read the articles. So, yep. Jimmy, we hardly knew you. There's Jimmy Carter. But I'll just kind of flip through it. These are the old cars from that period. You know, the 70s were a great period, I think. They feel kind of modern, but the country... heck, Jimmy Carter, all my life, people have remembered his presidency as being full of malaise and gas lines. And let me tell you something. Just about anybody you can name would love to go back to 1978 in a lot of ways. And Jimmy Carter was not a bad president. I don't know a lot of this. There's a book club. Like I said, some of this isn't quite as... and there's always a chance we're going to run into a picture we shouldn't really show you. Polaroid. Yeah, my sister and I had a Polaroid for a while. All the cigarette ads. Should I admit I used to smoke cigarettes? There we go. But, I'm not going to show you that page. Yeah. There's Telly Savalas. Who loves you, baby? Kojak. Kojak. Always. You know what? What happened? You don't see those shows anymore. Not even on reruns. Those are the cars of that period. You know, I've actually heard people seriously say that the cars in the 60s and 70s, you'd always have like red sports cars and everything, and those people were always getting pulled over all the time. And that's one of the reasons that in the 80s and 90s you started to see all the cars go brown, black, gray. So all those kind of red, bright blue, bright red colors were always attracting the attention of the police. That's too bad if that's true. But let's see here. Well, let's go to the interview itself. I don't like I said, this isn't lending itself, in my opinion, as much to the Playboy interview with Jimmy Carter. A candid conversation with the Democratic candidate for the presidency. Let's When Carter agreed to do a Playboy interview, we decided we'd try our best not to add all the hype that always gushes forth during a presidential campaign. We wanted to pit him against an interviewer who would prod him and challenge him and not be afraid to ask irreverent questions. Jerry Brown. You know, I liked old Jerry Brown. I always think of him, and that was the kind of 70s liberalism which I connect with, like Linda Ronstadt, and is it the Eagles? That kind of Southern California liberalism, which seems a lot different. I bet a lot of those people are Republicans today, or practically. Jody Powell, he was, I think he's dead, but his name came up today. Was he the press secretary? Hamilton Jordan. Look, there's Jimmy Carter Young. Yeah, I remember. People Once and For All, Why Not the Best? That song. We Baptists are taught not to judge other people. Anybody can come and look at my record as governor. I didn't run around breaking people's doors to see if they were fornicating. Oh, Jimmy Carter. You know what? I heard him talk, and they were showing some old clips. And one thing I picked up on, the Southern accent is a lot diminished in 2024 than it was. He had quite a thick Southern accent, and I don't think you hear a lot of politicians today, even Southern politicians, with a thick accent like he had at that time. I don't think I would ever take on the same frame of mind that Nixon or Johnson did, lying, cheating, and distorting the truth. I think my religious beliefs alone would prevent that from happening. Of course, coming after Watergate, I'm a human being. I'm not a packaged article you put in a box and say, here's an ignorant Georgia peanut farmer with no flexibility. He's got to be predictable. He's got to be a liar and a racist. There's the... Yeah, Jerry Brown. Boy, you know, the Democrats should go back to those days. I'm not, this isn't a political channel, but you know, if you think about Jimmy Carter, he had support from Christians. Pat Robertson, all the Christians supported Jimmy Carter. I remember I found it. That was kind of, I associated it with the Carter campaign, but that referred to salvation in Christ. People put that I found it sign on their houses or their cars. He had support from all the anti-war George McGovern party, and he had support, as I mentioned, from people like Lester Maddox and George Wallace. Um, Somewhat controversially, but you know what? He won, didn't he? And he brought people together. And if you're not bringing people together, it's hard to get anything else accomplished. The national news media have absolutely no interest in issues at all. He had the African American vote, Jesse Jackson. He had all the college professor types. There's nobody on the press plane who would ask an issue question unless he thought he could trick me into some crazy statement. Every politician probably emphasizes different things to different audiences, but in your case, there's been a common criticism that you seem to have several faces, that you try to be all things to all people. I can't make myself believe these are contrivances and subterfuges. I've adapted to get votes. Adopted to get votes. It may be, and I can't get myself to admit it, but what I want to do is let people know how I can stand on the issues, how I stand on the issues as honestly as I can. Yep. Think about all the things in our country that hadn't happened yet. You know, one big change, I think in the 60s, 97% of the United States was born in the United States, so we didn't have, it was much more of a native population. There's Vantage cigarettes. There's some more. Let's see. He's talking about some of the... When a poll came out early in the primaries that said I had a small proportion of the Jewish vote, I said, well, this is really a disappointment to me. We've worked so hard with Jewish voters. But my pro-Israel stand won't change even if I don't get a single Jewish vote. You know, I was watching today some of the really old people in Washington. I think he was treated like a hick in Washington. People don't remember that now, but he kind of, he came in, Johnny Cash, Charlie Daniels. People forget all that. Dolly Parton, all those people campaigned with him. Elvin Bishop, Greg Allman, and a lot of Southerners all in the White House. And I think they he got treated sort of like a hick by a lot of the New England East Coast Ivy League types. Jimmy Carter was a brilliant man. Was he a nuclear? But some of these aren't. These pictures. Right guard. I don't know. Can you still buy that kind of stick guard? I remember seeing that. That would be in like gym class. Everybody'd have it. Oh, we got the Marlboro Man. Does that make you want to have a big old hit off a cowboy killer, Marlboro? Well, look at that. You wonder where masculinity went? The Marlboro Man. He might have been smoking a cigarette and headed for the emergency room with lung cancer, but meanwhile, he was pretty masculine looking. Looked pretty cool. I remember seeing that at Tigers games. And anyway, let's see what else we got here. I don't want to do anything as president that would be contravention of the moral and ethical standards that I would exemplify in my own life as an individual. Ray Charles, pretty young, slick-looking Ray Charles there, huh? I think a lot of us remember him when he got older. It's kind of funny. You remember sometimes people live a longer time. You end up remembering them in your mind as old people. But there he's looking pretty in the prime of life there. Well, you know what? What happened to great stereo systems like that? That turntable. Man, when I remember in the 70s, if you were cool and had your act together, you had a nice stereo. Nowadays, it's all just computers, I guess. I'm not a human being like everybody else. I have different relationships with different kinds of people. Sometimes very serious, sometimes very formal, sometimes lighthearted, sometimes intense, sometimes casual. How about NATO there? Strong anti-communist. Jimmy Carter. Yeah, it's coming back to me now how he. I remember when he was president, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and then we boycotted the Olympics. Remember that? And then I think they boycotted the Olympics in 1984. Yeah, so this would have a lot of stuff about the USSR, Eastern Europe. When Gerald Ford said Poland was not a captive nation by the USSR, that cost Gerald Ford the election, a lot of people said. Gerald Ford was also a good man, actually. Hunter Thompson. Here's a Southern Baptist and ignorant Georgia peanut farmer who doesn't have the right to enjoy music, who has no flexibility in his mind, who can't understand the sensitivities of an interpersonal relationship. He's got to be predictable. He's got to be for Cali and for the war. Is that Lieutenant Thomas Cali, the My Lai massacre? He's got to be a liar. He's got to be a racist. Is that what they're talking about? Vietnam? Yeah. Well, our country's changed so much things. So, anyway, we can't go through everything. Oh my goodness. I want Carlton. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought you might enjoy that. R.I.P. to a great American, Jimmy Carter. Truly. God bless.